You're listening to Saturday Morning Media. And now, back to our show. I have a lot of really cool friends who do a lot of really cool things. I wanted to make it a goal to sit down with these friends and spend about 15 minutes or so getting to know them better and find out about their past, present, and their future. The result is this show. My name is Grant Baciocco, and this is 15 Minutes With. Willie Etra is a musician, a composer, a musical director, and much more, and he is today's guest on the show. Willie, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we're going to talk about all the music that you do, but I would love to know, where did you grow up?
I grew up in New Jersey, back in another era.
In another era?
Yeah.
And what was your first sort of like creative thing that you latched on to as a kid?
I didn't start piano lessons till I was 8, so probably art.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school to be an artist.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never finished. But.
Like what kind? So as a kid, were you just like drawing comics, or like what was your?
Yeah, I drew. Eventually, in high school, I did animated films.
Oh, wow!
On a World War II era 8mm camera,
mm-hmm.
Bell and Howell.
And so were cartoons and animated films like those inspire you when you were a kid?
Comics.
Yeah.
Models. I loved models.
Where did you read comic books or just the comics in the papers?
Comic books.
Comic book. What were some of your favorite?
I started with DC, but then when let's see if I get it right. Was it Strange Adventures, or the Marvel started coming out with, first they had Fantastic Four and Spider-Man, but those were all in anthology
mm-hmm.
books. They didn't have their own comic yet.
Yeah. And did you try drawing your own comic books and superheroes and things?
I was not that. No.
No.
I love Famous Monsters.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it was such a different time. I read Famous Monsters magazine. What was that guy's name? You probably know him. I don't know, a huge film, monster buff. And Forrest Ackerman.
Okay.
Do you know that name?
This sounds familiar.
Yeah, so he had a series of magazines that focused on different areas of film
mm-hmm.
and monster. And I used to love to build monster models.
Like those, like kind of PVC, or not PVC, but like plastic.
Plastic, polystyrene.
Yeah, like Frankenstein's monster
right,
and all that stuff.
And you
yeah.
paint them.
Yeah.
A lot of war ones.
And when you mentioned you started piano lessons when you were 8?
When I was 8. I only took 4 years.
But was that you wanted to do that, or was that something your parents were like, you're going to take?
Oh, gosh, no. They sent me to a piano teacher that, somebody else's kid had gone to.
Right.
So I had to do it.
And were your parents creative at all?
No, not really. My father took up piano at age 76 and learned to read.
Mm-hmm.
And play just play sheet music. He loved it. My mom did some art, but not really.
Yeah. And when you got to high school, were you done with music? Like because you said you took 4 years of piano lessons.
I was done taking lessons, but I was in bands from when I was 13.
Oh, wow. What kind of bands were you in?
It was cover stuff at first. It probably started out folk.
Uh-huh.
In the early, I grew up in the late 50s, early 60s, so the Beatles weren't out yet while I was first playing.
Right.
There's doo-wop and folk, and then, I started doing that, and then the English invasion stuff. We played a lot of that and played school dances. It was great.
And were you playing piano this whole time, or were you playing different instruments?
Just piano.
Just piano.
Yeah, or farfisa organ.
Did you have your own that you could bring to the dances, like your own organ?
Sure.
Yeah,
it was a little farfisa mini compact organ.
Uh-huh.
And of course, my mother had to drive me because I wasn't able to drive yet.
Right.
So it was fun. It was a great way, to make money and meet girls.
Well, and you said you were 13 when you joined the band. Were your bandmates older than you, and like you were the young kid, or
we were
all 13?
We were all the same age. It was
Wow.
all classmates.
Yeah. And what was it? What was the makeup of the band? Like, so you're on piano,
Guitar, drums, bass. Sometimes there'd be a singer, an extra singer.
Did you have a name?
Let's see. Many names. God. Blake.
Blake was.
Yeah, which was not after. It was named after William Blake.
Okay.
The poet and artist, who was one of my art heroes.
Oh, he is
at the time. Yeah. The Third Rail. That was a band in the Bronx.
Yeah.
So in homage to the subway.
The Third Rail. Yeah.
Escape. I think those were the ones I remember from high school.
Yeah. And were you playing with the same guys through the whole time, or did the band change?
It was two different bands, because when I went to high school in the Bronx. Mm-hmm. So there was a whole other set of people to musicians play with. I met.
Yeah. And you talked about meeting girls through the band. Were the girls following the Blake and Escape around?
I mean, it was mostly local girls who we knew,
Right.
and or hadn't met closely.
And so when you were playing in these bands, after you took the 4 years of piano lessons, were you pretty much just self-taught, like everything was learning?
I still don't read that great, but computers have
helped with
made that not so necessary.
Yeah. And do you? Who were some of your musical influences at the time? I mean, you talked about folk. Did you have bands that you were really into?
Senior moment. Now, I remember one of the guitar players, I think it was the Chad Mitchell Trio, who had Roger McGuinn, who later changed his name to Jim McGuinn and became the lead guitarist for the Byrds. But yeah, he played with folk groups, Peter, Paul and Mary, Josh White, Burl Ives.
Yeah.
Because my dad listened to them, so...
Was there a lot of music in your house growing up? Like records and stuff?
Loved music. We went to the opera.
Oh, wow.
They took me to musicals.
Well, and after high school, were you just did you go to college, to university at all?
Yeah, I went to a few colleges. I went to 7 different colleges. I dropped out. That's another thing. At that time, in this country, we had a draft. Mm-hmm. And you were drafted into the Army. That could be put off by going to college. You'd get a 2S. And then it became a lottery system. So they'd have, it was like you see on the state lotteries, where they have the little ping pong balls that come out.
Right.
And each one would have a day of the year, so it was 1 through 365. And I took a shot. I dropped out of college. And I missed the draft by 4 numbers, I think.
Oh, wow. Were you willing to? I mean, you kind of have to if your number is pulled.
Yeah,
but were you willing to enlist and go?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, not enlist, but yeah.
Well, yeah, right. I mean,
willing to jump in there.
Right. Yeah. Not take off to Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so after the 7 different colleges, I mean, you were playing music all through the 7.
It was. I mean, a lot of it was when I dropped out. First, I spent 6 months in Cambridge, Massachusetts, playing with a band, and I was living in an apartment with, it seemed like 17 or 20 other people. I didn't have a bed. I slept on the floor, and it was filthy. And I did that for about 6 or 7 months. But all the other band members were interested in were doing hallucinogenics and jamming for 5 or 6 hours on one song. And it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So I moved back to New Jersey, and I got a job pumping gas. And back east, they pump the gas for you. There's no self-serve. Mm-hmm. And I learned mechanics, because at the gas station they fix the cars too.
Right.
And went to some school at night. I went to Parsons School of Design, the New School for Social Research, where I was introduced to synthesizers. We had one the size of would that be? Looks like 10 feet long.
Wow.
And it only played 2 notes. It was an ARP 2500. And we used an old Studer tape recorder with it. And it was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
All analog. You couldn't save your setting. I mean, it's hard to imagine. But it was so creative because you really shaped every bit of the sound.
Yeah.
And that was that would be like 71.
And what do you think would be like your first, because I know you've toured, you've gone on tour, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you've toured a lot. But what was like your first like kind of big break in music? You know what I mean? Like your first, like someone said,
there
hey,
have been no breaks because I haven't made it over to that other side.
But I mean, you played moments,
a lot. Even in high school, we played this Battle of Bands, I think in 1967 at the Cheetah. So I'm 16 years old. And we got 3rd place, and that was very exciting. Mm-hmm. 2 years later, the same band opened for the Chambers Brothers in front of 5,000 people.
Wow.
So, I'm 18, and we're opening for a major act. That was at their height. The time has come today.
Right.
Time! But then, it seemed to be all static stuff. I don't know what... There are lots of moments, and then when I first came to California, I got in with this singer from Trinidad, and we went to the Playboy Club in Chicago, which in '76 was a huge deal.
Yeah.
And we were touring, and Johnny Carson had his birthday there, and we had this thing where David Clayton Thomas of Blood, Sweat, and Tears was in the audience. And our singer kind of, David Clayton Thomas, let's have him up here and sing a song. Who wants to hear him? Everybody clap. It was a little embarrassing to me, but he came up, and then he ended up bringing up some of his musicians, which took the burden off us.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he wanted to sing Shame and Scandal in the Family or Big Bamboo, because we were playing calypso and reggae and stuff.
Yeah.
But that was exciting, and...
Well, let's talk. You mentioned moving to California. What was the reason to move to California? Was it a job or?
I was in Colorado. I was an apprentice glassblower, so I was up all night shoveling furnaces and then doing my own work at in those precious moments.
Yeah.
And assisting during the day with stuff. And I mean, I met cool musicians there, but there's not a lot of work. This was Boulder. Mm-hmm. In 1974 through, I guess I left in 76. As a matter of fact, I was in a guitar store, and this guy came in and asked me if I wanted to jam and get together and play some tunes. And he was the drummer of a band who had played at our high school and became famous regionally, the Blues Project. And so I was so excited to meet this guy and play with him, but there was really not enough music. So on a early January morning, I left Denver in a snowstorm, drove 24 hours straight through to Los Angeles, where it was 90-odd degrees and the sky was brown. Smog was really bad in the 70s. Mm-hmm. My eyes were burning and tearing. And I wanted to turn around, but I was too tired, so I figured I'd stay for a while.
Yeah. Well, I think when I first met you, I met you through Puppet Up, which is the Jim Henson Company's Puppet Up. But before that, and before I met you, you got in with the Groundlings, and you were playing. Yes. You were the musical director. I don't know if that's the official title for what you did at the Groundlings, but
by the time I left, I started out as the Sunday show music guy.
Right. So how did you get that job? How did that...
I was playing in a band with this guy, Greg Kanega, my drummer, and he was a drummer at the Groundlings. And he wanted me to come there and play keyboards. So he got me in as a sub, and then I became rotating, and then took over Sunday when the music director retired just a couple or a few months later. Mm-hmm. and then worked the main show, and then I was doing all shows 4 to 5 nights a week.
Yeah. And it's amazing to me that, like Patrick likes to say during our show, that you improvise just as much as we do, and it's true, because you're constantly, you have to come up with the right music for the scene, or the intro, the outro.
It's sometimes true.
Sometimes true. Well, we do have some set pieces, but you throw in little...
Yeah, I love it. It's like scoring a film, except you don't know what's coming up.
Right. Exactly. But I want to talk about the Groundlings, because, I mean, you have probably seen so many...
Oh, God.
People come through there who are now, household names, practically. But do you love watching? I mean, you have to watch improv because it's your job. But do you really enjoy it? Do you enjoy?
I love it. Even my favorite part of music. Ooh, now I don't know if it's true, but when I used to play a lot, my favorite part was improvising.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to do that today and get paid for it. I mean, that's
right.
Even back then, as an actor, when do you get paid to do improv?
Right.
Unless it's, an offshoot of another, you get to make up a couple of lines in a film or a TV show. And same with me. People don't pay you to improvise.
Right.
But it's fun.
Right. But I guess what I'm asking is, do you enjoy watching improv comedy?
God.
Because you've had to watch it for 5 nights a week.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. But I may love odd things about it. Not just when people do well, but when they struggle, seeing their process.
Yeah.
But it's really sublime when it works.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine the things that you've seen over just great moments, just amazing.
I love in sketch, I love seeing when their understudies come in. I've seen this piece for months.
Right.
And then all of a sudden somebody comes in and does a totally different take on it.
Yeah.
And maybe the writing will become more clear to me when I see somebody else do it. So, I always loved my job. I always felt really blessed to be able to do what I do.
Yeah.
I was at the Groundlings for 31 years.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
That is amazing.
Not a grown-up living, but a lot of fun.
I think you're making money for doing it, so it's a grown-up living.
Well, some. not once you have kids, Grant.
Oh, okay. Well, true. So watching improv for all those years, 31 years there, and you're now working with Puppet Up regularly in Las Vegas. Yeah. Do you think you could get up and do improv?
Nope.
No?
Not even in the least.
You haven't learned any tricks in those?
I know tricks, but that's not good improv.
Yeah.
That's, when you see people fall back on their tricks, that's not really what I enjoy.
Right. Do I have tricks that I fall back on?
What you guys do is so unique. And
yeah.
I like to be protected by my keyboard.
That's your little fort there?
I've been in some films, and it's always uncomfortable.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What films have you been in?
Well, I did a lot of films as a musician.
Uh-huh.
Just because that's a union rule, where if there's a musician on screen, he has to be
a real musician.
Yeah. Not always my instrument. I played trumpet in China Beach. I was in a movie called Return to Horror High with a very young George Clooney.
Excellent.
And I had some lines in that. I was really terrible, but in my defense, I did it one take.
Oh, excellent!
Both scenes.
Yeah. I wonder if George Clooney would remember you now.
No.
Do you work on your own music? Do you have your own projects that you work on?
Yeah, of course. Before I did theater, that's what I did. I was in bands, and they were original bands by that time. We did. During the 70s, it was kind of R&B. We had a band called 24 Karat Gold and released an album, which became discovered later in there was a movement in England called Modern Soul. And they'd come to the States and pick up obscure LPs. Mm-hmm. And they used it for their dance club or clubs. And so I heard it. I saw it on YouTube. that they posted this album that I did in the 70s.
Yeah.
And the 80s was kind of new wavy stuff. When I first got to the Groundlings, George McGrath, who was one of the actors and a brilliant guy, and he called me in to do Elvira's MTV Halloween special.
Wow.
To write the music for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny to think back on it, that here I am in my little bungalow in Santa Monica, and Cassandra Peterson comes over to sing something on my little 8-track tape machine. Also, rudimentary stuff. And it was great. So that started my writing for TV. And then I did Georgia's show, which called On the Television, which was Nickelodeon's first original programming at night. God, we wrote so many pieces for that. The Groundlings TV show, in 12 days of taping, we did 75 song improvs.
Wow.
Which was great. I mean, it was just... I love writing. And my own stuff that I write just for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I just finished a gospel tune.
Wow. And do you release these, or I mean, you say it's just for you, but...
No, well, I plan to go back in retirement. I'd like to go back into songwriting and plugging my music.
Yeah.
For other artists.
Do you, I mean, I know you're playing piano every night in the shows, but do you like go, oh, I have to play 2 hours a day, or, you know what I mean? Like, do you practice?
No, I'm
not a practicer?
Never like to practice. Matter of fact, I was doing a string of biographies in the early 2000s for A&E, and which one was it? I did Vivian Lee, and she played cello, so I did a cello-based score, but there were some classical kind of pieces, and I hired a piano player.
Oh, really?
And yeah. And then we did a bebop one for, it was a 2-hour Bob Newhart, because he loved bebop, so I wanted to do the score, something that he would have liked. I had a jazz pianist come in.
Yeah. But you have in your room right now, there's a piano set up, right? Like, do you go...
Not literally this second. I put it away.
Oh, you put it away. Okay. All right. Oh, there you go.
I'm just not a practicer.
Yeah.
But I can noodle for hours.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll either involve... Yeah, I mean, it's kind of composing. I'll just play... I'm really more melody-based than anything.
Yeah.
So it's almost, it's in my head more than my fingers translate it.
Right. Well, if someone wanted to, what's the biggest piece of advice you could give to somebody if they wanted to take their musical skills and because, you spent 31 years at the Groundlings improvising. What piece of advice can you give them to to head on that career path of trying to, play with theater groups and things like that?
Wow. Bone up on your styles. That was one thing. I had to learn that because I really didn't come from a show background. I think just the more you know. I mean, my previous drummer was, he was conservatory trained. And that was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. The fact that he could write and he knew all these styles. So I could lean on him if somebody called out reggaeton or what I would consider not a mainstream style.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you hear that and I would think, oh, reggae, but it's really kind of a Puerto Rican salsa. So, yeah, the more you know or different, because you're always using that in improv.
Right. Well, you use it, I think the other night, maybe in one or two shows, it's like you played a snippet of Tom Petty and a snippet of the Foo Fighters and a snippet of Metallica. You know what I mean?
Well,
But that's different styles. You're looking into all these different styles and you're knowing them. Yeah. Excellent. Well, Willie, as we wrap up here, I don't know if you are online in terms of having a Twitter account, or do you have a website that people can go check out?
Sadly, no.
You don't?
They can just punch my name into YouTube and see some of my music. I like making videos for them, too.
Oh, excellent.
So I'd like to do more of that.
Okay, well...
Video editing is a lot of fun.
Excellent. So search on YouTube. Search Willie Etra on YouTube.
That's right.
Willie, thank you so much for talking to me today. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Willie Etra is a musician, composer, and musical director, and he was today's guest on 15 Minutes With. Head on over to GrantCast.com and check out the show notes for this episode for a link to some of Willie's music on YouTube and also a link to his IMDb page. 15 Minutes With on the GrantCast is a production of Saturday Morning Media, and it's made possible by the very generous Saturday Morning Media Patreon patrons who've gone over to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up a monthly donation for as little as $1 a month. Huge thanks to Shay Stewart, Mer Lafferty, Jeff Peterson, Dale Gadania, Stephen Staver, Jackie Klimo, Melissa Crawford, Chuck, Matthew Wayne Selznick, Dave Slusher of the Evil Genius Chronicles, Mike Coughlin, Dorothy Baciocco, John D., Kathy Crawford, Brian Greer, Carrie Whitney, Chuck Tomasi, Chris Foster, Stephen Ing, Clinton of ComedyForecast.com, Vicky DeVries, Mike Wobschall, Twitter user Butzingear, a.k.a. Wildcat, Eve Cunning, Mike Hamilton, Gaston Marino, and Reed Loveland. If you'd like to support this show and the other fun content from Saturday Morning Media, become a patron. Head on over to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Media and set up your monthly donation today. You can also support the show by telling a friend about it or leaving us a review over on iTunes. And while you're there on iTunes, make sure to click that subscribe button. That way you'll get episodes the moment they are released. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you next week. The GrantCast is copyright 2016 Saturday Morning Media, Grant Baciocco, executive producer. All rights reserved. www.SaturdayMorningMedia.com.
You've been listening to Saturday Morning Media. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.